George Groves wins a 12-round unanimous points decision over Martin Murray. This was a pretty tough contest for both men. There were no knockdowns, but George Groves did seriously hurt Martin Murray on numerous occasions throughout this fight. Martin Murray did very, very well to actually last the distance. And I'm not quite sure how he stayed on his feet for the full 12 rounds. I'm not sure how Groves didn't manage to at least drop him once because, as I say, he had him hurt numerous times. As far as the performances, early on in this fight, I was still looking at Groves and thinking there's something missing there. Even though he was winning, he was controlling the fight from long range with his jab and power shots and what have you. But to me, he still didn't look like he had the youthful energy and exuberance of the George Groves of old, like the Groves that fought Carl Froch. He still didn't seem like the same guy to me. And I don't know if it's just me, but Groves also looked thinner in this fight than I've ever seen him before. To me, he looked a bit skinny. And obviously there's been rampant rumors and speculation for quite a while now that George Groves is seriously struggling to make 168 pounds. And if my eyes are not deceiving me, this may be further evidence of that. To me, he looked very, very gaunt in the ring when he was fighting. So as I was saying, he wasn't particularly impressing me early on, but after he hurt Martin Murray for the first time, I started to see glimpses of the old George Groves come into the fight and come into his performance. And I think George Groves will gain a massive amount of confidence. He's always been a confident character, but on a subconscious level, I think he'll gain even more confidence and more self-belief from this particular fight right here because of the fact that he didn't gas out. He was still strong in the 12th. In fact, he nearly dropped Murray in the 12th. He nearly had him out of there. So he didn't gas out because that's one thing people have said about him. He did take punches from Murray. It has to be said Murray is not a big puncher. He wasn't a big puncher at middleweight. He's certainly not a big puncher at super middleweight. But nonetheless, since George Groves' chin has been so questionable over the years, I mean, even Badou Jack had him on the floor and had him hurt. And Badou Jack is not a big puncher. So since, all those things are the case, for him to be able to take Martin Murray's punches flush on the chin, and he did take some flush shots in this fight, he did get cut in the fight, I think that also will give him some subconscious extra confidence. So I think it's a good fight for Groves. I really do think after this kind of fight, my only reservation after seeing this fight is George Groves' weight. How long can he stay at super middleweight? How long can he still be strong at the weight? But from a psychological point of view, I think this fight would have done George Groves a hell of a lot of good because he's had a lot of disappointments. Obviously, there was the Badou Jack fight, the 2 fights with Froch, and some frustrating performances after the fight with Froch particularly. So I think it's psychologically a way for him to say to himself, I've still got the old Groves, I've still got the old me, I can still do it like before, particularly being in a fight on a big stage like that, on a big pay-per-view card. I think it will do Groves a lot of good psychologically. As for Martin Murray, the commentators were perplexed and baffled as to why he wasn't letting his hands go. And Martin Murray normally is a lot more active than that in fights. I'm just wondering whether it was George Groves' power that kept him in his shell. He found out very early on that Groves was much better than him at long range, that he wasn't able to replicate the kind of things that Badou Jack, a much bigger fighter naturally than Martin Murray, was able to do against Groves. Murray realized he couldn't replicate that. And he was wary about letting his hands go at long range. I think that's my best interpretation of why Murray wasn't as active as normal. He felt some of the shots early on from Groves and thought, wow, this guy can actually punch. So I've got to be very careful. It's too risky to engage him at long range. He's much quicker than me at long range, seems to have better reach and better timing. So the only time I'm going to let my hands go is when I get him up against the ropes, because I'll be able to push my body into him, shorten my punches, and hopefully he won't be able to get the same type of leverage when I have him in that position. And that's what you saw from Murray. Murray never really let his hands go against Groves until he had Groves back on the ropes. So I think it was a strategic move from Martin Murray to not be as active as we normally see him. Not that he didn't want to be active, but he just wasn't able to get Groves onto the ropes, into the safe zone, so to speak, or the safest zone, because even on the ropes, Groves was still dangerous at times. But he wasn't able to get Groves into that position very often. He was trying his best, but just wasn't able to get it done. So in the end, Groves was pretty dominant in this fight, and the scorecards reflected that. I think the scorecards were like 118, 110, something like that, and I can't really argue with that. You could even go a little bit wider, a couple rounds either side of that is understandable. So yeah, good performance by Groves. Murray, I don't know where he goes from here. Maybe he should drop back down to middleweight because he's likely to become nothing but cannon fodder at super middleweight. So I don't know. Let me know what you think of, or what you thought of the fight, and where do you think both fighters should go from here? What should their next moves be? How much life do you think there is left in either of them? And what about George Groves' weight issue here? He's still obviously punching hard, even though he was fighting a smaller man moving up in Martin Murray. He hurt him numerous times. He didn't have him on the floor a bunch of times and stop him like Golovkin did. But still, he was able to hurt him. And Martin Murray is a durable guy. He certainly hurt Martin Murray a lot more than Arthur Abraham was able to do. So Groves has still got some very, very good power there. It has to be said. I'll be interested to hear what Martin Murray has to say about Groves' power and his performance. So drop your comments in the comment section below, people. Let me know how you felt about this whole fight and the performances and where both guys go from here. All right? It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.